Alright producers, mixers and audio engineers, let's be real. Making records isn't just about having the right gear, it's about being in the right room with the right people. But what if that room didn't have to have walls? That's exactly what Control Room is all about. This game-changing platform was built by none other than rock producer Ramesh Dedingoda, the guy behind Bring Me the Horizon, Motorhead, Feeling for a Friend and Nova Twins, just to name a few, so you already know it's designed for real producers by a real producer. Think of Control Room as your all-access pass to the best minds in music production. Look, members get direct Q&As and discussions with some of the world's top producers and mixers, an active, tight-knit community where you can talk shop, get feedback, and trade ideas. Exclusive downloadable multi-tracks so you can break down mixes, practice, and level up your skills. You also get free drum samples that actually sound killer. Huge members-only discounts on software, plugins, and pro audio gear, because let's be honest, great tools don't come cheap. And look, here's the best part. You don't need to be in a big name studio to be a part of it. Whether you're in a top tier studio or a bedroom studio, Control Room gives you the knowledge, tools, and the connections to push your production game further. And let's get this, it's only $5.99 a month. That's less than the price of a fancy coffee for direct access to some of the best minds in music production. So don't wait, head to control-room.net today, sign up and start making music better, faster. Control Room, where producers connect, learn and create.
Hello everybody and welcome to Take Me Out with me, Jason Westgate. On today's show we have the award-winning producer and singer Jason Perry, most notably known for being the singer in the rock band A. Jason actually originally started a band many years ago with his two brothers, Giles and Adam, and guitar player Mark Chapman, and went on to have amazing success, most notably with albums like Hi-Fi Serious, which is one of my favourites as well. Jason then transitioned into world of production, working with a vast array of bands, really cementing himself to be one of the most renowned rock producers of his generation. Now, Jason went on to produce bands like McFly, Don Broco, The Blackout, Kids in Glass Houses, and is probably most notably known for producing McFly's third studio album, Motion in the Ocean, which actually reached in the top 10 UK charts and actually produced 3 number 1 singles. Now, Jason is a Grammy award-winning producer. Now, ultimately, Jason kind of transverses between both being a singer in a band and then also moving and obviously being a very notable producer. So in today's episode, obviously we're going to be diving deep into that, the mindset of someone who's a performer and a producer, and really hearing those stories of what it's like. So without further ado, here we have Jason Perry. Jace, how you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for jumping on, man. I know obviously we've obviously been working together since 2018, I think it was, that first download show that I did with you guys. And I was just saying, obviously, we've always had these conversations before about like the odd little thing here or there about production and everything else. But I just thought this would be a great excuse to actually dig a little bit deeper and kind of have it not be that you're pulled away to sing in A and we can actually both have a little bit more time, or, a late night hotel room chat that we've had before for many hours, which is cool. But I think a good place to start is, and the one thing I've always been interested in, is ultimately everyone generally knows about the history of A and how you started, but the transition of being the singer in A, then being a producer. What is the story behind that? Was it natural? Was it because you started producing the band yourself and then kind of naturally went into that? How did that happen?
It's still transitioning. So I think I've always been interested in production before I was into. Well, no, I always wanted to be in a band. That's all I cared about. when I was a kid and a teenager. But then as I got into my 20s, I was fascinated with studios and production and record making and stuff. So when I got signed, well, before that, we had me and Adam got a Prince's Trust grant loan, and a bank loan, and we built a studio. We built a little mobile studio, and then we built a studio in Shoreditch on Great Eastern Street. Ironically, because it was the only place in London we could afford to rent, and then we made it trendy, and then we couldn't afford to stay there. But we had an amazing little studio that we built. We went to we were on the dole, but we got this Prince's Trust grant, and we went to New York and bought loads of gear, recording gear for cheap because it was good with the dollar then. Smuggled it all back and built this little studio, and I learned how to record, and I was terrible, really bad. But the first record I ever made there was a band called 18 Wheeler, and they just booked the studio, and the producer never turned up, so I ended up producing it, or what I thought was producing. I was basically learning from the singer. We were both learning as we went on, me and the singer in the band, and Adam was making the tea, and it was really cool. It was great. And then we made and that album, still one of my favourite records, the 18 Wheeler album. They were the band, they were signed to Creation. They were the band that played with Oasis when Oasis got signed at King Tut.
Nice.
They had a song called Stay, which I absolutely loved. They were like Big Star meets the Beach Boys, but they wanted all like dance stuff in it, and I was quite good at that. I used to work in clubs, techno clubs and stuff, doing the PA. And then we had this piece of advice, which I might have told you before, where we were trying really hard to get a record deal, trying for years and years, because you had to get a record deal then. And then we'd made all these demos, and I used to spend all my time schlepping around record companies and trying to get gigs at the Marquee and wherever else in London. And never really getting anywhere, making a few contacts. People liked us. And Jesus Jones were our favourite band, and for some reason we got mates with them, and then got mates with EMF, and James from EMF, and obviously that song, Unbelievable, was huge.
Yeah.
We started hanging around Camden with them, and then they started turning up at our house, and it was really weird. It was like me, Adam, my mate Steve, Dan Hawkin, and Giles, and we all lived in, so it was like this Lowestoft contingent that had moved down, Kev Drain.
Yep.
And obviously Dan went on to be in the Darkness. They all put round, but Dan lived with us. Then Jesus Jones would come round, and then EMF would come round, and we'd have all these parties at our house, and like, me and Adam used to look at each other and go, why is this happening? Why are our favourite bands coming to our house to hang out with us? Yet we can't get a record deal. There's something about us all when we're together that must be fun.
Yeah.
And then I heard this piece of advice from John Entwistle from The Who on TV, and he said, if you're trying to get a record deal, you don't deserve one. And it really blew me away. In a bad way. And then I woke up in the morning and thought, shit, this cat is right. Trying too hard. Like, who wants anybody who's trying hard? Who wants a girlfriend if they're trying hard? Who wants a boyfriend if they're trying too hard? Did Paul Weller try hard to get a record deal? Did the Beatles try hard? Like, anything that's ever been done in life that's been really good is just so good that you don't need to try. And literally went to our studio the next day, scrapped everything, and recorded 3 songs again, using this newfound. And that was the first thing I produced when I realised that production wasn't anything to do with gear. It was to do with a mindset and getting yourself in the frame to record. And so I scrapped everything, and we did these punk rock demos of this song 5 in the morning, and we had 9 major record deals on the table within 3 months. 300 grand record deals and £250,000 publishing deals, and from not trying. From just being ourselves, and then I didn't realise it at the time. I thought that was being in a band, but actually that was being a producer. That was trying to work out what record we're making, how we're making it, why we're making it that way, and getting everybody galvanised. So it's like us against the world. And then I just carried on. In A. I always did all our B-sides. I recorded all my vocals on my own whenever we recorded. So I learned how to comp vocals. I learned a lot from Al Clay, who produced Monkey Kong, ICP, and Hi-Fi Serious.
Yeah.
and I learned a lot of what I didn't like as well. And then when we went on to work with Terry Day, it was obviously a legend. I learned a lot from him, good and bad. And again, I recorded all my own vocals on that album. Terry didn't have anything to do with the vocal recording at all, really. So I just learned the ropes, and then always just tried to. I was always fascinated with studios. I always wanted to have my picture at the desk, and I just always wanted to be a producer. I used to fantasize about myself having a tape or a tape book with Jason Perry producer written on it. That was like my fantasy, to be called a producer. I absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've always had fantasies like that. I always used to fantasize about playing at Wembley or getting a Grammy or winning a Kerrang award. It's always like visualize it and daydream about it, and like a kid. And I used to be that way about production. I just think it's really glamorous, and then I doing it, realizing it's torture. It's actually really hard. Yeah, that's what I always. Yeah, it's a long-winded question, but that's how I got into it. And then at the end of my friend Julian Emery, who was a writer, writing some songs that he was hoping to pitch to the A&R man at Island Records to write for Busted, who were massive at the time. And I didn't know the A&R man at all, but I knew that I had a bit of kudos in the bank with A at that point, so I could kind of get into any meeting. So I said to Julian, I'll help him with these demos. So I went to his house and we recorded some together, and they were really good. And then I went to play them to Paul, who ended up being a really good friend. And he liked the demos so much, he said, why don't you go meet Matt Willis, who was a raging alcoholic at the time. So he sent us to this pub to meet Matt, and I got absolutely battered and helped Matt get home, and we became fast friends, me and Matt. And then I went to see Busted at Wembley. I think it was the 14th night at Wembley. And Charlie looks like he just wanted to be anywhere else. But I thought, it'd be great to write for Busted. So we wrote some demos, me and Julian, and then the sound is so good that they just said to us, why don't you make the album? But we didn't know we thought we were making songs for Matt for Busted. Then halfway through that, Busted split up. And Matt was told that Busted was splitting up. He didn't have any choice.
Yeah.
So that went on to be Matt's solo record. So I spent 18 months, me and Julian, making that record with Matt.
Wow.
And then the week he came out, he ended up in rehab, and it didn't do very well, but it should have done. It was absolutely brilliant. And I put all my eggs in that basket. And again, 18 months of your life, learning how to be a producer, really, with a big megastar. Couldn't walk down the street with Matt at the time.
Yeah.
He's also one of the loveliest human beings has ever been. Absolutely love the guy. And then it didn't do anything, but he led to Nick Gatfield, who ran Island Records at the time, calling Adam and saying, is Jason available to meet McFly? And I went down to meet McFly and ended up producing them from then on, really. Thanks to that Matt record.
I mean, what was that like? I mean, obviously, when you obviously, like you said, kind of transitioning from that, doing the Matt's record, and then literally going, actually, do you know what? What about McFly, who were literally on the up and up at that point in time anyway?
Yeah, I mean,
had you met the guys before?
No, I went to see them. First time I met them, they did 3 nights at Wembley, and I went to meet them backstage. So, Paul Adam met us there, and we went backstage and met them and their manager. But yeah, it's kind of weird meeting a band when they come off at Wembley.
Yeah.
13,000 girls.
Yeah, it's another level. Just another level.
Yeah. I had a lot of confidence then. I've never been very confident, but I've never been a very confident person, but I've always been confident around people. I'm a good conversationalist. I can. You won't think this, because every time I see you, I'm trying to be quiet because of my voice, which is true, and it's horrible because I love talking. But the miserable part of being on tour when you're a singer is you just can't speak. And I'm really pure, and I don't want everybody to think that I'm miserable or grumpy or whatever, but it is horrible. And so, meeting McFly and Matt, I mean, the mega stars. But they but we were one of their favourite bands. So
Yeah.
they were just nervous to be around us as I was to be around them in a way. So it's a bit transactional.
But then you're in the same boat together, I think. And I think I said to you before about the people that I've kind of met in the industry after having worked for you guys. I mentioned it, and yeah, they're all like, "Oh, I love A." They were such an influence on me from bands that I wouldn't even necessarily have kind of mentioned. And I said that story a little while ago about meeting Jordan Fish. Obviously, he was in Bring the Horizon. Mentioned about the fact that obviously working with you guys, and he said, "I can't tell you how much A were a huge influence for me." And just these things come up. And do you think that, again, that when you met McFly and especially after the Wembley show and ultimately go on to produce them, do you think that because you both felt that, there was just a comfortableness that you were both in the same position? So it wasn't like, oh, who's this guy going to come and tell us what to do and so forth, that you've got to go into the band that you've never met. Do you think there was like a nice mixture of that you were both in the same boat and that's why that probably was quite successful as well?
Yeah. I also think now as a producer, I think it shocks people when they first meet me because first thing I did with McFly, I went to meet them at John Henry's in rehearsal to some songs, and I took him out for dinner. And then we came back and we sat down. We didn't play anything, and we just talked. And I asked him questions about what's it like to be McFly, and what do you hate about being McFly, and what are the misconceptions about you, and what would you like to change, and where do you see yourself in 10 years' time, and like not just musically, like personally. And I think they were blown away that actually somebody cared. And I was like,
yeah,
I'm here to be a fifth member of the band, and I'm here to be that connection between you, not just you and the studio, but you and the outside world, you and management, you and the record company, you and your fans. I'm really just here to help. And if you think it's about what mic pre's we're going to achieve, all that's important. But fundamentally, it's about what is our vision for this album? What do you want to accomplish? How can I help you get there? And then we have a little mission. I've just done the same with another band I'm working with at the moment. And, I had 3 meetings with them before we'd even talked about the songs. I want to know about them. I want to know about what's it like to be them. And I think that's really important. I mean, not a lot of producers do that. I'm not blowing my own trumpet. It's just the way I've always been. A lot of producers do that. They think, oh, I'll book a studio and I'll see you in there. And I just think, look, anyone can make a record now. There has to be more to it than just making a record. You have to have someone to help you make that record and know what record you want to make. So maybe it's because I was in a band, maybe, and I hated using vocal boosts. I've never used one since. And bands they love that.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I can see it from their point of view as well as the studio point of view. And so, I love all that. I love starting a project. Just ending it is the hardest thing. It never blooming ends and things face.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the other thing as well, is the fact that the amount of bands you've worked with and what you've done, how do you constantly keep it fresh for yourself as well? Like, because, I think, as we know some producers that have ultimately kind of, it must feel like Groundhog Day to them, getting in there, listen to the demos. If they're involved in pre-production, great. They're going to be involved early on. Sometimes they're just going to get, here's the demo. But from your point of view, like you said, understanding a bit more about the band, does it feel like Groundhog's Day, or is it very much like how do you keep it fresh?
Well, I did say it was feeling like that, and then I made a conscious decision to sell my studio. Built a studio down in Essex, and everybody came to that. And then I realised I was turning on the same computer every day, turning on the same mic pre's, using the same mic, getting up the same plugins, looking at the same walls, and it got really boring. I get bored really quick. I got pretty bad ADHD, as most of us do in this industry, but it's not very pleasant. I find it really frustrating and really hard. I'm still grappling with it. I'm just distracted all the time, and so I just want more distractions, and I want more dopamine now I've learned about it. And I want to get to the studio where I've never been, and I want to walk in and I'll book a studio somewhere, and the assistant will call me and say, "Don't want the mic list and stuff." I'm like, "No, I don't. I've had to look at the pictures, and it looks nice. As long as everything pretty much works, we can have a nice time. That's all I care about. I don't care what mics you've got. I want to find out on the day when I first get there and say, right, what we've got. We'll use what we've got. I don't order in stuff anymore. Like I'm doing a vocal session tomorrow. and next week, and they've asked me what I want to order in, and so I'll use any mic I could do with a 1073. That's all. An end compressor will do. Not bothered. And yeah, that's it. So that's how you keep it fresh. You don't
So
do
that kind of
and you don't get
being,
some people keep it fresh by keep buying new gear. And I get that.
well,
It's been to
but
Ramesh
that's
next
just
week.
chasing.
Ramesh loves
that's just
gear, and he absolutely loves it. He's obsessed with it, and he loves it, and he gets such a kick out of it. And he's amazing. He knows, he's on all the forums. He knows what gear's coming out, what new plugins coming out. He's got tie-ins with this company, that company. He loves unboxing gear. He loves plugging new things in and seeing how it sounds. He's absolutely amazing at that. And I've never been that excited about it. I used to have loads of gear and loved it.
Yeah.
But that's how Ramesh keeps it fresh for himself, I guess. You'd have to ask him. A lot of people do. I can't afford to do that.
Well, it's also, I think, well, that's the thing, is the fact that we've all been there. I mean, no matter if you're a guitar player, producer, whatever, there's always that constant kind of journey for perfection, trying to find the next bit of gear that's better than the next thing. And like you said, for some people, that's what keeps it fresh for them. It's like a new piece of equipment unlocks something more creative, from a creative point of view, like, this can give me something else. But like you said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I was just really interested because, like you said, I get it. Groundhog's Day for a producer or even an engineer. I mean, the engineer working in the same studio, looking at the same comp settings, looking at the whatever that will be. I think even for them, it's either a new piece of gear they can put in the train and be like, oh, this has made it sound completely different. Or it's just really interesting to hear a little bit more about that.
I agree, and I get that, and I love it. It's like buying new clothes or going to a new restaurant. You've got to, especially with ADHD, you've got to keep things exciting all the time. For me, it's working with different bands, different people. Never been stuck in genres. I mean, I guess I'm a pop person that likes working with real bands. I like working with real instruments. I don't sit and program stuff. I've got programmers that do stuff for me. I can do that, but it's not really what my forte is. So I like finding new bands, and I like learning from bands. I always say to the bands, I want you to teach me, not the other way around. All I do, Jace, is, when I say to bands all the time, is I'm going to ask you loads of questions all day, right? And the reason I'm asking those questions is because I think there's a reason for asking them, right? I'm not asking you for the sake of it. It's because something's not quite right. Oh, I know it can be better, whatever better means. And what I want from the band is for them to answer the questions, not me. I'm not going to tell you what chords to play. I'll tell you what bass strings you need. I'll tell you if it sounds good, and if it's helping with the vibe that we're after. Like that is a song next week that I know we need like a 70s kind of bass sound. It's really obvious that I don't want new strings on the bass.
But
as a producer, you can be pretty down certain the bass player's going to turn it with brand new strings on the bass. So my first job that day would be to change strings, right? You just know these things; they're just obvious.
That's what's plumbed into you to prep for a studio session. New heads, no strings, everything else is okay. It's natural, I think, and I think like when you look at a younger band, because I know obviously you're quite renowned with working with a lot of younger bands. And you've even said before, I know obviously having watched your kind of walk and talks that you do on Instagram quite a lot, working with the youth, because they will tell you what they like, what they don't like, and they will definitely tell you what they don't like in a very serious way. But I think from their point of view, they've always got this also condition sometimes about like, well, this is what you've got to do when you go record an album. But like you said, being that mindset, being like, well, no, is whatever works for the song and what keeps the vibe. If, like I've done it before in sessions myself, and I've looked at, and there could have been a DW drum kit sat there that's like $5,500 or whatever that would be, and there's a little kit down the corner there that's got some old heads on. You A/B, and you go, well, that one sounds 100% better than what that one does because it fits the vibe. But there's always people get conditioned for the better the gear, the newer the gear, the fresher it's got to sound better. But like you said, that's not necessarily the case.
Depends what kind of record you're making, doesn't it? I mean, if you're Mark Ronson and you're making an Amy Winehouse record with the Dapkins, you don't want a brand new DW kit with new XC. It's really obvious. But it would be amazing how many bands think. And I think that's my problem with the rock world in general. Is all rock records have to sound the same.
Yeah, you're right.
And there's a current trend at the moment where they all sound sterile and shiny and fake. And it's just not for me. I'm not knocking it. It's just for me. You may as well be making pop music or dance music or whatever.
Yep.
You know, I really like to get into why instruments are talking to my heart. That's it. That's all I care about is my heart doing something when we're playing a song.
But do you think? Well, that's what I was going to say. Do you think that it's because of what music you were into as a kid? You know, I've only got to mention Van Halen once to you probably, and you'd be like, wow, okay, I can talk for 3 hours. But do you think it's because the albums that you listened to when you were younger were live recorded instruments? There was no replacement. There was good gear. Do you think that that's the essence of that track?
I had quite an eclectic taste, though. So, like, the first band I loved was The Jam, and then Big Country and U2. And then I moved to Suffolk, and I was the only kid at school. Me and Adam like U2 and Sade and Big Country and The Police and The Jam. Everybody else was into village metal because it was Suffolk. Yep. And they got us into village metal, so everybody likes Iron Maiden, AC/DC, and they all still do. Which is like, I love village metal, but I would never...
Unapologetically as well.
Yeah, never even heard of it till I went to Suffolk. So I liked all that. I mean, me and Adam always tell this story that every band on Live Aid we liked, and like, I think that's pretty rare. And I've always learned loads from everything. You know, I'd come home and I'd put records on, I'd put Mamas and Papas on my mum and dad's albums and listen to the harmonies, and I could, and sometimes it'd make me want to just cry, or just cheer, or just let something out. And I used to think to myself, how is that happening? How are they doing that? And then I learned that it's because they're doing it around one microphone, and that microphone is distorted, and that distortion gives you this feeling of reality, of realness, and there's certain tricks you can use, you know. And then I went to that studio in LA and recorded that, and where Brian Wilson made Pet Sounds and made a record in there, and it was amazing, but not as amazing if you were Brian Wilson, or he's talented the people. So it's all about the heart for me. Same in the band. I'll do anything on stage to make myself happy. And my favourite gigs are when things go wrong. Always.
Yeah.
I love it when things go wrong. I love it when it's cringe. I love anything that's cringy. Sometimes I'll say to bands in studios, where's the cringe in this song? Like, it's too good. There's no moments that's making me cringe. Like, what? Yep. And like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's what megastars do. They do things when you think that's shit, where you can't believe it. Like, Taylor Swift will do a little monologue, and she'll be doing, you'll be getting down to this sick beat. Like, it's so cringe.
Yeah.
But it's fucking awesome. That's why Taylor Swift does it. And she's probably laughing while she did it. Where's that in this album? You know, I was making a star out of 10 album that everyone's mums like, oh, we're going to try and do some moments where it makes people just go, oh, bloody hell, I don't know about that.
I mean, but there's definitely that, I think, from my point of view, and obviously having grown up, fortunately, you know, again, like yourself, listened to a lot of early 60s and 70s records that my mum used to bring me and stuff, and then obviously growing up through new metal, and then obviously into kind of, you know, the kind of more 90s and 2000s, and then into, you know, now. But I think it's music takes a lot of mainstream music now takes itself far too seriously. So when you do have someone that just jumps out, and it's just, I mean, you know, we could probably name 100 tracks that have come out probably in the last 10 years that have ones that have shot out, because they make you stand out. They're not clinical. They're not, you know, always clean. Yeah, you can have some serious tracks in there, but sometimes it's like the ones that, like you said, make you go a bit like, oh, that was a bit weird. That was a bit cringe. But they're the ones that ultimately stick with you for ages. And yeah, I think Taylor Swift's like Taylor, like I actually bloody know her. That's a really bad thing. Taylor Swift. Like T-Dog, Taylor, she obviously, you know, that's why she's so renowned now, and people love her because she gets this sense of people being like, oh, she's actually recorded that herself. It's not just some guy that's just come in and wrote the lyrics for her, which obviously probably is the case a little bit. But most
big artists, I don't think they get the credit. Most big artists write a lot on their records. I think those days where someone comes in and has done it all for you,
the ghostwriters and stuff.
I'm not sure it was ever that way anyway, but of course you get 20 20 writers on a song these days, because a lot of it's clear samples and it's been passed on and passed on and passed on. But Taylor Swift is in the room there working on lyrics, and I've never worked with anybody yet. I wouldn't work with anybody who expected to come and just sing a song that you've done for them. I wouldn't do it. I just think you're not an artist. What's in it for you? Why are you singing someone else's song?
Yeah, and that's when you lose the heart, because you mentioned before about the emotion. I've been, probably the same thing as you. I've been moved by songs that I could listen to any genre, but if it moves me, I'm like, oh, if it makes me angry, if it makes me sad, whatever that will be, it moves you. But I think the conviction of the performance changes when you haven't actually bled those lyrics out yourself. And I think you can tell. I think you can tell the ones that are just going through the motions and the people that actually really have written those lyrics themselves. And I think that kind of brings me on to my next point is,
you can tell, but when you're really good, you can't, right? So, I don't know, let's use Wichita Lineman, right? Glenn Campbell.
Yep.
But Glenn Campbell
one of my favourite songs of all time.
Yeah, mate, but Glenn Campbell didn't write that song.
Yep.
But you've got no idea when he's singing it.
It's true, yeah, it's very true.
It's the same with the Beach Boys. They didn't write a lot of those songs, and that happened a lot in the 60s, where people would cover songs 3 or 4 times. The same song would be released in 2 years. So, yeah, I know what you're saying, but when you're really good, you can get away with it, can't you?
Well, especially when you're selling millions and millions of people, I think it's tough. But I think also it depends on the genre of the music as well. I think sometimes it's hard. I don't know if there's any ghostwriters on rap music or kind of modern grime these days. If it's actually something, if Stormzy's actually writing these lyrics himself, or if there's
I think most people are writing beats, aren't they now?
I mean, you mentioned you mentioned Shoreditch, and the first proper studio that I worked in was Fortress Studios just off Old Street. Which was great. Obviously 2 decent studios in, but I remember, and that was probably back in 2010 maybe, probably even earlier than that, 2008. But I remember there being 2 big studios with like a kind of an atrium area in the middle, a hangout area that was, it wasn't great. It looked a bit like a drug den, typical Shoreditch back then, to be fair. But on the stairs up and down, they basically had all the smaller little kind of, just enough room to get one desk in. But all I could hear on the way up, downstairs you could hear a band, and then ultimately when you got the further up you got up to where we were, it was just beats, and then there was music. Well, so a full band again. Yeah. But at that point, and that was nearly 15, 16 years ago. And at that point, I was like, there's definitely something. There's an outlet for someone to produce this. You don't have to be a musician, and I think that's the reason why I think that kind of genre of music's gone so big now.
I think beat production is where the money's at now. People making beats and actually just selling them $50,000 a pop.
Yeah. Well, that's why you got sample libraries like Splice and everything else. And Sabrina Carpenter, obviously, that her song Espresso, that was obviously had that Splice sample in at the very start, and they kind of reused that, and that's just some sample library, and then that'll do. Yeah, we'll nab that. And obviously there's a lot more.
Is that a sample? Is it from Splice?
That was the very, very start of that song is a Splice sample. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song.
It's great, but then yet again, unapologetically, they haven't changed it. They've just gone, we like that. We'll put some effects on it, but we're happy to use it because it suits the song. It suits that we're not scared of using it, which is I think a lot of people get caught up now on legitimacy of like, oh, I've written this myself. It's like, Charlie Puth can get a cup, and pitch it down and make a song out of it. He hasn't had to, buy an old Juno keyboard or whatever. He's just gone like, I'll just take it out of this. I don't care. Just using whatever. But I think now, because the access to everyone is so much easier, you can have Daniel Bedingfield was obviously one of the first people really to make it obvious that you can record a track that's successful in your bedroom. Early Ellie Goulding as well. At that point, obviously she was doing that as well. So I think now the access to everyone, and that's my kind of next point as well, that ultimately we know that being in the studio offers you the environment to be creative. It's the feeling of being in the studio. But do you think now the way that music is created now and ultimately produced, it has changed so much that the big studios probably are not needed or won't be needed in the future?
Well, the way I work now, so I was on this record I'm making at the moment. I was away last week in a big studio doing drums all week with a band playing live. And because I'm tracking them live, there's not much time to listen back to stuff. And when you do listen back, it's hard to make judgments because you just come out. I stand in the studio with a band. I don't sit at the desk. So I'm in there while they're playing. And then I need a week on my own, which is what this week has been. So this week has been me in my studio here. My studio is a laptop and it's Marshall speakers. And I've been editing all that stuff on my own, quietly, taking loads of breaks, going for walks, doing other stuff, shopping, distractions and cooking and stuff. But I don't, what a waste of time it would be to be in a big studio doing that. So,
yeah.
But then I'm going back to a smaller studio now next week to do vocals. And then I'm going back to that big studio again to do guitars and bass and backing vocals and stuff. And then I'll have another week back here editing, maybe 2 weeks. I tend to spend 2 days or so on vocals, just pumping vocals. And that's when I'll bring it back here. It'll be 50 to 60% in shape. And then I'll leave it. And then I'll come and I'll start comping vocals. And when I comp vocals, I try to get out of here. I try to go sit in a hotel in London.
Yep.
Or sit in a sort house, or go down to the beach when the weather's nice.
Yep.
Or sit in a coffee shop, just somewhere where it's distracting enough. Because when you comping vocals, you cannot get lost in it. You've got to be distracted. I do, to be all the time. You've got to breaks every 20 minutes. You come back, you're like, why doesn't this work? And you come back, it's singing too fast. Everything needs to be 30 milliseconds back that way. Why did I not hear that? Because you've not had a break. So I've learned these things now, and I've learned the best way to do it. And some of it is taking time. Most of the time is taking breaks away from it. I really get Rick Rubin. I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
When I leave the studio, I'm not going to go back and listen to the song in my hotel room. I'm not going to listen to it on the journey and in the car. Literally don't give a shit about it till I get to the studio. Then I want to hear it.
Yeah.
You need that break away from it. And then I can come in next morning and just go, this isn't happening, is it? Wonder why it's not happening. Maybe we need to do the guitars again, or maybe it's too slow, or says to the band, do you think it's happening? Why is it not happening? Why is it something great yesterday? Was it? And they'll go, no, we think it sounds cool. And I go, okay, cool. Or they'll go, no, actually, we'll record it again.
I think it's easy to obsess, though, isn't it? I think if you consistently listen for things, you end up listening and hearing things that really aren't there. Because once you put it in the mix with everything, ultimately that could kind of go anyway. But especially with vocals, which obviously is the main hooks, everything else, I think, like you said, it's very easy just to obsess constantly over that one part. So yeah, like you said, I mean, Rick Rubin's obviously always been kind of an advocate for that anyway, ultimately just kind of walking away and coming in fresh. But that kind of brings you back to your original point again about keeping things fresh and being creative, being in a creative space. If you continually listen to the same thing again and again, and then went in the studio and then expected to switch it on, you're already kind of fatigued.
Yeah, completely. It's bad enough when you're comping vocals, you can't sleep at night. When you've heard literally the same line for 4 hours, it's really hard to get out of your head. But I love comping vocals. I absolutely love it. There's probably not many people that do, but I love editing vocals.
But do you think that's because you're a vocalist as well, though?
Maybe, but when it comes together, it's magic. And I can take a vocal that was 80% and make it 100%, make it great. Because I know a lot of the tricks now, and most of them you wouldn't believe, and it's using less and less gear. But making things sound more awake and making things sound a bit, lazy, or just punching in the chorus, or, slow it. It's amazing how much a vocal can slow a track down, or how much a vocal can speed a track up. It's not the drummer half the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. And another thing I do is I always make, and I've got these little rules which I make now, which I won't break, is that I make stereo backing tracks and pump the vocal to that. So when I'm doing, when I'm doing the vocal, I'm not getting in, turning the snare up and down, fapping around this, that, and the other. I'm comping the vocal.
So it's just pure focus on that vocal. Yeah, I get it.
Everything else off my screen apart from that vocal. And listen, I never use auto-tune. I go in and I literally pitch up and down every single region that I make that needs it, and then I use auto-tune and glue that together like a compressor, really, to smooth out those pitches, and then I'll make a playlist. I'll put that together as one thing. and then I'll come back the next day, which might take me 2 days, and I'll save and get the original playlist and put that in front of the playlist that I just made with all the tuning and everything. And I'll listen to it again with fresh ears. And only when I think it needs help will I go back into the playlist I did yesterday and grab some of that and bring it back.
Yeah.
So the second day helps you be really brave because you know psychologically you've got a perfect take.
Yeah.
And it's just sitting under that playlist of what you're working now. And then go back to the one before, the one that really grabbed you, that was exciting you, and try and use as much as that. I'll do that with singers as well. I'll comp a vocal, so I'll get it amazing, where I think it's amazing, and then I'll go into the studio with a singer and have them double track to that vocal. And I guarantee you'll get it in 2 takes, and I'll use 80% of that new one. Psychologically, they're hearing this perfect vocal in one ear, back into it in the other ear. It just sounds really natural then. You're like, wow, how easy was that? Why didn't you sing that yesterday? But the psychological...
Well, I think it's because it is, but they're also, you know, from a vocalist point of view as well, they're kind of feeling quite exposed in that position as well, because, you know, I think, you know, when you, like you said, having a perfectly tracked vocal, you know, to run alongside it, it just gives you this sense of like, well, that is me first and foremost anyway. Yeah. I know I can hit it. It kind of gives them that reassurance because, yeah, like you said, especially, you know, if you're in a vocal booth, which we know, like you said, you're not a massive fan of, but it's just you. There's no one else around you. You've got one microphone. You've got to get it right as many times as you can. I think there is that certain element of feeling quite exposed and you know, being in an not like an unsafe environment. But like you said, you know, is that the reason why you'd like them to? Because do you track in the live room with them? How do you track?
No, I
normally?
I have them in the control room next to me.
Yeah,
right next to the desk. So I always think that's the best sounding place in the studio. Spent all that money tuning the room so it sounds good where I'm sitting. You may as well have a vocalist stand there.
Yeah.
Then they can have a holder mic and I'll put the speakers on and they can sing with the speakers on, or we can have heads. I've got my headphones on, they've got theirs behind me. I can turn around and whack them, tickle them, push them, laugh. And the main thing is, in between takes, we just go, that's fucking amazing. Oh, that was really tired. Let's try 3 more of this. I'm looking at them. I'm not going, right.
Yeah, as opposed to talk back and then...
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Clem Fandango, sorry.
Yes. Can you hear me, Clem?
The worst thing ever as a singer, the worst experience ever as a singer is to be in that studio listening to a producer with a talkback mic while everybody's cracking up in the room, sharing jokes, talking to people. And you're like,
I have always,
why would
you're singing your heart out.
Yeah, no one's listening. Or they're talking about something else. Or they're laughing, you think they're laughing at you. Or
that's the thing, when talkback isn't on and they can see everyone looking around, that but like you said, having direct feedback from, I mean, do you also, I mean, but you know, the vocalists that I've worked with as well, I only generally tend to like myself and the singer, generally just the 2 of us, you know, but I know some people want the band around, but when you've got, you know, opinions and stuff, I know sometimes that can work. Are you comfortable with the rest of the band being in as well, or do you like it just to be...
Sometimes I like it with just a singer, but I try to make it really easy going. I don't want to create any tension. If someone opens the door and walks in and there's a noise, I don't care. If the engineer's in there doing something, or the assistant, it's fine. If the other band members come in, we don't broke out, go through a different kind of band. I'll say to the lads, we do vocals at night for a night. Try to do vocals late morning and also at night. And again, you want an hour of magic each time.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, really, it's diminishing returns. And you can do more when you're doing backing vocals when you've got a structure of what you need. But I'll say to the band at dinner, right, me and Rob are going to go over and do a couple of hours of vocals. If you want to come over, fill your boots, come over, but you have to film it.
Yeah.
You have to be in there to make him show off, to make Bobby show off. So come over and be an audience, to make Bobby jump around, make him do silly things. Don't come over and be on your phone.
Yeah.
So come over.
But do you think though, is because, like you said at the very start, because you spend the time on getting to know the band, you know some of the, you know, the traits that they have. So you know, for instance, with Rob, that he might need, you know, he likes that kind of element of being like on show and that kind of performance.
Being funny and showing off, and Slide does them. You know, if I was say, right, come over, you can do the light. Someone can mess around, turn the lights on and off. We'll get Bobby under the desk singing, and you can see it on YouTube. These things where
Yeah.
sliding out from under the desk and filming him, and like all this silly shit you have to do to stop them thinking about singing. And then
Yeah.
the thing is with the bands that they're good bands anyway. They're good singers anyway. You have to teach them how to sing.
Yeah.
You just got to get them in the space where they don't give a fuck. You really have. If you really give a fuck, you've got to get in a space where you don't. That's why back of the napkins ideas are always the best. These companies spend millions trying to get back to the point when they first had that first concept.
The essence.
Back of the napkin.
Yeah.
And,
It's like lightning in a bottle, isn't it? It's just like, it's just trying to, once you've got it, like you said, if you need an hour of magic and then everyone else can help create that, you're not in a sterile environment putting pressure on people. It's like, we're here to make a record. It's meant to be fun. Let's get everyone involved. And like you said, it ultimately, when the proof's in the pudding already with the work that you've done, but it makes a difference.
It's easy as well. It's only music. Music's so easy if you can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The first producer we ever worked with was a guy called Tom Wilson, who did all the Offspring records. And I'd never been to California, and then I ended up being there for 6 months. It was amazing. I fell in love with the place and never really came back. We're there all the time. And so we're in San Francisco and Santa Cruz and LA and all around Northern California for ages. And it was a great time. But what I took from that, the thing I remember is Tom saying to me, no one wants to hear effort.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really good piece of advice. It's like, even with, think of a band like Tool or Rush. How much I love Rush. I don't put on a Rush record and think they were trying really hard. Do you know what I mean? You hear the effort. You just hear them being cool as
it's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, Rush are one of those bands where I think you can tell that they didn't. They didn't give a shit. They obviously did, but it just came naturally. They didn't sit down and critique everything. That was like, that sounds great, let's fucking run with it and just record it. And I think also you can hear that. You can hear that kind of energy.
I know it was hard for them, some of the songs, because I've read the books, but the production doesn't come across in the production that it was hard for them. It comes across in the production that they're gods and they can do anything that we can't. Those mere mortals can't. And that's not effort, is it? That's superstardom. That's magic. That's that thing that no one else has got. That's what you want to get from people. And everyone's got it.
Well, even the Beastie Boys, you listen to the Beastie Boys anyway themselves, and you go, these were, iconic, an iconic group, in that era,
great
especially that style of music. But
all time,
but they were, but you actually listen to it, and you go, there's mistakes in there, there's little kind of weird little vocal things, but you don't listen. You don't go, oh nah, we'll auto tune that out. We'll tools that the hell out of that vocal or whatever. It was just, this is what it is, and it just worked.
Yeah, it's incredible. Check Your Head is my favorite produced album in history.
But that was defining of an era.
Well, it's never going to sound old-fashioned, is it?
No.
So it's like, I always think the music, and again, it's subjective. I always think if you're going to buy a flat in London, right, you're going to buy a house in London, don't go buy the new build flat, because in 10 years' time, there'll be another new build flat that'll look way cooler, way more modern than yours. Go buy the Edwardian Victorian townhouse. In 10 years' time, it'll still look cool.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the same in music, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. It depends what genre you're making. You can make music that's very 1983, and it will always sound like it. Or you can make music like Check Your Head that's going to sound timeless forever.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, isn't it? These are just gifts that come from, these are superhumans making these records.
I think there's sacrifice in it as well, though, I think, especially in if you're making one of these albums that are now deemed timeless and iconic, I think there's also, like you said, there's a lot of it now about Rush, and even the Beastie Boys are two groups we've mentioned already. But I think, there's a lot of time and effort that, even though, I would say effort, I mean in terms of the fact that they wanted to make a good album, they wanted it to come natural. But I think also, and this is the kind of next kind of question I'd love to kind of get from you, is that the sacrifice of a musician or a producer to be at that level, you have to sacrifice parts of yourself for the art, again, whether it's time rehearsing or time writing songs or you're in the studio for, I mean, you said you're in California for 6 months, away from family, away from friends. And yeah, you're with your bandmates, but you're living inside each other's pockets. But from your point of view, do you think now that you've found a good balance? Because yet again, being, a father, great father to obviously some amazing kids that you have, do you think now that the way that you approach production now is also a little bit more like, well, I don't need to be in a studio for fucking 6 months recording this and I'm away from everyone? How do you balance that now as opposed to when you were in your 20s?
Well, I also think it's something no one talks about because it's not cool, but especially in rock music. There isn't the budgets for that. It's all right being away for 3 months if you're getting paid $100,000. I mean, it does make a big difference. I mean, I'm not trying to bring it down to money because I'm not remotely interested in money. It's probably one of my big problems. But I'm doing a record at the moment. I'm doing it for half of what I would have earned in '96.
Yeah.
I can't tell me any other person out there in any industry, the pizza shop downstairs are not doing that. The baker next door is doing that. The new car I just bought isn't half the price of what I paid in '96. Yet there won't be, there's no budgets. Because everybody wanted free music and everybody's got free music. And now we all moan there's no bands anymore and there's nowhere for them to play. It's like, well, you wanted free music, kids. You can't, everything has a cause and effect in life, everything. You watch pornography all day, you're going to get addicted to porn. Take drugs, you could become a drug addict. They've all got short-term highs and then long-term effects. And the long-term effects of free music is expensive concerts, and only the top 1% in music will make a living out of it. And there is hardly any budgets to do what I do anymore, and it's really sad and it's really hard. So I won't go away because A, the band can't afford it, and B, it's just not good. I've already had one marriage fail because of my job. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And you just think sometimes, for what? For a Grammy? Great. You know what I mean? So I love it. It's all I can do. I love making music. I love music. I do think music is a gift. I think it's everything for me, music and art and architecture. And I love graphic design. I love garden design. I love anything where you can move things around and see the negative space. I love gardening and I love graphics. I'm obsessed with graphics. And I love furniture design and I love food on a plate. All the same as making a record to me. It's all just getting the best ingredients and making it simple and making them all work together. And I love that. But yeah, kind of right job, wrong era really. 30 years ago would have been all right. But but everybody's got free music now, so just happens that most of it's shit.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice, I think, because like you said, the access to music now is better than it's ever been. With the amount of digital radio stations, Spotify, Amazon, obviously everything you can go on from there. YouTube now, I remember kind of grew up in the MTV generation, coming home and hoping that, to be fair, that's the first time I got introduced to A, was, going home, putting on MTV2 or Scuzz or Kerrang or whatever it was and hearing nothing for the first time and that music video. And then, again, I think...
especially about where you have to wait, isn't there?
Because you had to buy the album to get the single, and now you can, just... It's
really weird. It's like, I'll sound like an old Luddite because I'm kind of love the future and I think teenagers have got a lot to offer, and I hate to sound like an old man, but some of it is true. We had it all until the turn of the millennium. Everything was going great. You could still book a holiday. You could pay 15 quid for a CD. Everybody moaned about it, but so what? It was worth it. You only got the ones that were good. So it made people be good. People had to put effort into making their albums because if it didn't, people wouldn't buy them because they were expensive. Yeah. And just like Apple Mac computers haven't gone down in price, because they're still good, and iPhones are still good. And we had TV programs that we could watch our favorite videos on, and we could record them, and we could just about do everything. We could make home videos. DVDs were out, so the quality was really good. We could go to the cinema and it was full. We could go to restaurants and it didn't cost a fortune. We could get on the tube. And now we've got everything, and I just think we've blown it as a culture. I just think social media and Big Brother, those two things hand in hand, making stupid people famous for not doing anything, and then just social media and the access to everything. I'm just not sure it's what we wanted. And there's that thing about you got to give people what they need, not what they want, because people don't know the difference until it's too late. And everybody wants free music, but what actually they need? What actually they needed was already there. And the 90s was probably a high watermark for rock music anyway, early 2000s, late 90s. And I don't know if we'll ever see it again. No, I'm not saying there's not loads of great new bands around, and there is. But are they going to get a record deal? Are they going to make it? Are they anywhere to play? Do people care? I mean, that's the challenge. And
well, that's the counter argument, though, isn't it? I think what I've always heard, and I think I completely agree with the sentiment of that. And I think the counter argument is, well, yeah, but it's never been easier to write an album, record an album, release an album. You don't need a label. But that was always deemed as kind of being the labels were always deemed as being the gatekeepers to success. But there's no, especially with AR guys, so and so forth. There was artist development, but now,
A&R people back in our day knew about music. They went to gigs every night. They were obsessed with music. They were brilliant. Record companies. I'm sick of this kind of narrative that record companies are the enemy.
Yeah,
record companies.
Some prehistoric model.
Just brilliant. You see it on the social media all the time. Don't get a record deal. Don't give up your masters. Why? Why do you own your masters? So you're going to sell 10,000 records to the best and make a few quid. Surely you need it. The way to make money out of music now is touring.
Well, I saw a Kate. Yeah, well, it was, but then that's when 360 deals came in, and
yeah, but not anymore.
Well, yeah. But
if I was signing a band now, I'd sign to a major label, and I'd get as much money as I could from that label. And I'd get my band big on the back of them and use all their help and resources, and then go out and tour for the rest of my life and make money.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try and own my masters and trying to. Again, it's short-term thinking. You can always buy them back if you make it massive. Just because Taylor Swift did. I mean, I don't know who owns the A masters. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but it's like you said, but then, at the end of the day, you get down to the core of why you're doing it is to make music for people to listen to. So whatever route, I think, and there's obviously people will have their own ideas about it, but I think whatever the easiest route to get to the point of playing for as many different people and as many people can hear your music, that must be the kind of the end journey. It's like we're creating this music. We want as many people that we can connect with, whether that's in person, playing live, or listen to our music. So what is the easiest route for us to, or the most direct route for us to get there? And it is generally working with someone who has got good resources, the money to kind of put you out there. Because again, touring, we know, is not cheap anymore.
No.
So you have to maximize on it. Even as I was saying before, obviously we started recording. I obviously went to go see Toto last night at Wembley, and I think it was like £140 a ticket.
What?
Like on the floor.
And
you're like, and at that point you're like, well, I mean, yeah, the production was good, and it's Toto, they're a legacy band, of course. But I remember, going to Wembley to go see, bands play for like £35.
Yeah.
And being like, that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. I know. Well, we can talk about why that is as well. That's because bands don't have contracts with agents. That's another big problem.
Yeah.
So if your agent is telling you can't go out in the summer and make X amount, and you needed to as a band, and you thought you were going to make X amount from festivals, and your agent's saying, well, look, guys, I'm not getting any offers in from any promoters at that level. You go, okay, we'll go to CAA then, because they promised with us. So you'll go down the road to CAA and they'll sign you, and then they'll go to the promoter and say, look, got this new band, you can have them for the tour, you can have this band, use some leverage, but you've got to get them some decent offers. Okay, we'll speak to the promoter. Okay, we've offered this, he's putting that, we've got the price up. Okay, well then, it's just like Trump putting tariffs on Chinese imports. Who's paying for it? The American public. So inflation's going to go up. Like, think it through. Inflation will be through the roof. you're gonna put a 60% tariff on a TV that's coming from China. What? So you're either going to make your own in America really quick and open up factories to make TVs like LG do, or you're going to charge double for LG TV. The Chinese aren't paying for it. Dixon's aren't paying for it. The customer is. And that's what's happened with concert tickets.
Yeah, and I think, but like you said, but for bands that really are still, they just want to play. They just want to play, and they've got the politics behind the scenes that's unfortunately having to drive those kind of conversations. It's tough. And I think, even from our point of view and our experience working together, on some of the tours that we've done, there's still no replacement for playing in front of people. I know you love it. You love it. I mean, your shtick is renowned for being some of the funniest funniest on the scene. But it's all part of the show.
Yeah. I love it. I love
showing off.
I love showing off. Yeah, I love it. I love attention. I love making Mark laugh. And sometimes I make Giles want to hit me.
So what has been in A and even recording, what has been kind of some of the standout memories that you have of being in A? Again, whether that's recording, writing the song, playing, what are some of the standout kind of memories that you have?
I think going to Japan first time, Summer Sonic, yeah, that was the best trip with the Streets. So us and Mikey and the rest of the Morgan in the Streets, and Mike was a mate and fun. Yeah, going to Japan with them was amazing. I think the first gig we played was us, the Streets, The Offspring, New Order, Weezer, and Guns N' Roses.
That's a bill and a half. I don't think I've ever seen New Order and Guns N' Roses on the same.
No, they were on a different stage, but
okay, fair enough.
Still went over there and see New Order with Walter from Rival Schools, who just wetted himself. How
old were you when you played that?
30, probably.
Wow.
31. Just found out that Ollie was pregnant with Zach. That was amazing. Just sitting there having sushi with the Streets, and then going and doing karaoke with them and singing, when you get another morning after the karaoke bar with Mikey, and then singing Nothing in the karaoke bar, and just felt like this is all your dreams come true.
Yeah.
Tomorrow playing a football stadium, Guns N' Roses. It was just like being on a great school and touring. I loved everything about it apart from missing home, missing loved ones. The whole process of touring, I love flight cases. I love making tea and catering. Love sound checks. I love it. I love traveling. Love airports. I love the quietness of traveling. You like being quiet sometimes. And I love to show off. I hated losing my voice and having no voice. That's what I felt really lonely.
Yes.
Yeah, but apart from that, I loved it all. I wouldn't really change it, really. And I love making records for people. It's just a tough climate. That's all, especially in English. I mean, I'm not very successful, so that really is my own fault. But I'm sure Will I Am is sitting there moaning about budgets. So yeah, you are. You try my best, make some good records, and hopefully make a few more. That's all you can hope for.
Do you think that, from your point of view, that you've kind of left? Not like, I mean, you're still doing it today. It's not like you're now going to complete. That's it. It's finished. But do you think are you happy with the legacy of the bands that you've worked with? Are you happy that you're known for being this type of producer? Are you happy with?
Yeah, I bet. I want to work with other. I want to work with some other bands. I always want to make a Rush album. I think I'll be a great producer for Metallica. I'd love to work with some really big rock bands that need fresh approach.
Because
I'm really good at finding out and getting that approach. And people might not like it, but every record I've worked on has always had an approach to it.
Yes.
It's always been what's the word? It's always been driven, like culture driven, not. And I always say to bands, I might be wrong at this, but I always say to bands, because they worry about the fans, whether the fans will like it. I say, if you're a fan of a band, all you want to be is proud of them. If you're a real fan,
Yeah.
So let's just make a record to be proud of, and you can, just don't disappoint them by being weak. Like, push yourself a bit, and so I'm really proud of that part of my armory. I guess that's what I'm good at. Not so good at singing. My voice is good now. Speak.
I feel bad now. You've got. You've obviously been on there for over an hour now, but it's but like I said, obviously having worked with you directly as well, I think there's always this I was when I got that call originally, if I could kind of jump on it and help kind of look after Yin and obviously Adam on that download show, and obviously having been experienced and done it before with loads of other bands, and I was always kind of mindful of, I wonder what these guys are going to be like, because I've heard stories and I don't know. I've heard they're an absolute. Well, no, it's in like they're absolutely mental.
Oh, really?
They're just fun to be around, absolutely mental. And I was like, well, I don't know. You don't ever know. But I never, even in my experience, I think the first time I met everyone, but primarily you and obviously Adam as well, is that you were there for the hang. You were there for just had a good time. You accepted anyone that came in your circle and were kind of involved in the band. There was no animosity anywhere. And I literally felt so at home working for you. And obviously being a tech myself, that's hard because, as you know, when you're on the road together, I mean, I think we done that one show and then we done the 2018 Hi-Fi Series tour, didn't we? And there was it was a Hi-Fi Series tour, wasn't it? Yeah, in 2018. But going from doing one show to actually living in each other's pockets and being on stage and being with everyone, that's because I was speaking to a guy called Josh, who's a Killswitch Engagers and worked for Avenged Sevenfold's guitar tech, and he said 30% of this is the job, 70% of it's the hang. If you can't hang around and be around people and have good conversations and have a laugh, he's like, it's just not going to work. But from my point of view, I was like, you guys really, I felt a passion from you guys, and I know yet again what you're doing at the moment, although yet again it's hopefully going to come to light, that obviously I know that there's a new album on the horizon, but I can always tell right now that you guys haven't lost the same passion for recording music and producing it, and I got that feeling from day one of meeting you guys.
This album's the best. It's the best thing we've ever done, I think, so I'm really excited about it. It's got to get finished. You can't, because it's not, I was saying to my girlfriend the other day, she's like, when are you going to get the album finished? I'm like, look, it's hard enough when you're in a band full time to finish an album. Blur re-recorded their entire album that time. And that's all you have to do there.
Yeah.
Let alone when it's not your job. So it's not that we don't want to, it's just getting everybody together to do it. And then, communication on text messages, so there's not people turning up to the studio when other people don't. Like this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, yet again, but these are all the things that add to the story. I mean, the tribulation that you guys are going through to get this album done. But obviously, having heard the first track on the album as well, I think the vibe is spot on. Yeah, again, it sounds completely fresh, but it still sounds like A, which I think is, I know there was a few working titles around, Make A Great Again and a few other things and stuff. But I think there's definitely, I think it'll be long awaited for a lot of people that are really into you guys. But also, there's a whole generation of people that haven't been introduced to your music yet that I think will love that.
Yeah, I'm so confident with it. I think we should change the name of the band and just bring it out as a completely new band for a laugh, or even release it as 10 different bands. And see what happens. So we find another audience with no baggage, because the songs are really that good.
Yeah.
So anyway, that song's big-headed. But yeah, it will be out soon, I promise.
Well, we're all looking forward to it. Awesome. Well, Jace, I'll let you go. It's been long overdue chat, because I know obviously when we've kind of had these little impromptu chats, I thought let's get some stuff on the record at least anyway and start talking about it. But
thank you, mate. Thanks for your time.
No, it's been great having you on. And yeah, obviously, I think the thing, my salient point, obviously, with what I've kind of heard from this is really about the fact that there is no right or wrong way to produce these bands. I think it's really kind of getting to the core of who they are as people, and ultimately just being an environment that gets the most out of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then 4
Good.
weeks of editing, but
yeah, which people don't see, and we didn't even get into the whole mixing conversation, mastering, and everything else.
Yeah.
But I think there's that's probably part 2 of this conversation anyway. But
Well,
Jason, I'll let you go. It's been a pleasure, man.
Ramesh about mixing. He's brilliant at it. I'm terrible at it.
Well, hopefully we'll get Ramesh on the show. Hopefully at some point. I know he's. I did reach out to him. He's super busy at the moment. Yet again, I think with everyone, life, and he's got that new kind of studio in this back garden that looks ridiculous.
Yeah, that's cool, doesn't it?
It does look good.
He's a lovely
Ramesh is great. Yeah, I think
Dan
randomly.
I'll speak to Dan, see if he wants to come on.
Well, Dan, so this is a very random story as well, but obviously our first producer we worked with in my band was Justin Hill, who obviously was in Sixth with Dan.
Yeah. Really?
And they had Weller Hill, that kind of dual kind of band together. I think Dan was working on Young Guns at that point in time, and obviously Justin was working with us. So we met Dan a few times. I think we even lent him. He was doing some writing, a writing session, and he needed to borrow a bass, and he came into the studio, so I lent him some stuff. But I've not spoken to Dan in absolutely years, but yeah, I think having a lot of insight into that, because I mean, again, a guitar player in a very well-known tech metal band, and it's yet again, so and even Justin's, from a vocalist point of view, Justin's great, and they've kind of found their niches now in that audience, but no, it'd be great, man, be great. But I'll let you go. It's been a pleasure again,
mate.
Man, and we'll catch up soon.